right, I hope you have your drawings ready and your traceable is all put down. I have put mine on this scrapbook paper. It's got snowflakes on it, thought it would be cute. And this is our traceable, and we're going to be doing the face first because the tree is overlapping it, parts of him. So it'd be easier as far as putting paint on that way, because then you don't have to paint around the tree. So I have put out some colors, and I am using craft paint, and this is Santa's flesh and shading flesh, and what else do I have here? Highlight flesh and a red. You need a red also, so true red or Napathol red. And if you're not working with craft paint and you want to use the artist grade, you can mix your own flesh color by using a ochre and a little bit of red and some white. You just have to play around with the amounts of each color that you put in. You can make yours whatever color, flesh color you want. So I have put mine on a plate here, and I'm zoomed in here so you can see what I'm doing. And when doing portraits in paint, pencil, color pencil, pastels, whatever, there are a lot of ugly stages. Just telling you. So you're gonna wonder, what? This doesn't look good. You're gonna say it many times, but keep going because it does get better. So I have some water here beside me. Let's see, I am going to be using smaller brushes. So I have a flat. This is where is it? Number 6 flat. It's a plaid. I also have some small rounds. And I have an angled here if I want. This is a 1/4 inch. And let's see, I think that's about it. I'll let you know if I change up my brushes and what they are. So to start off with, we're going to be doing the mid-tones basically of this Santa. So that's going to be kind of into this shade here. So that was the mid flash. Did I say that, or is it this one? Santa's flesh, I think it was. So we're going to do that first, and we're just going to leave a little area where the eyebrows are and the eyes and the nostrils of the nose, so you know where your nose and stuff are. You can also put your traceable back on and retrace the eyes if you cover them up. It's up to you. I'm just going to have this, you have your reference photo, so keep it in front of you. Now I have a lot of background showing through this, so we'll see how this covers it. I may need to put a little bit more of coats on just to cover this blue. We'll see. If you have put your own background on, depending on the colors you're using, you may need to put a couple coats too. Okay, I'm speeding this up 4 times just because this does take a while, and there's nothing really important to show you. You're basically just filling in the area with the one color. So take your time and enjoy this process. Remember, you don't have to get too specific in the brush strokes. We're going to add a lot of layers to this, and I just want one layer on just to get the base coat down. And you can also do the hands. Feel free to stop the video at any time if you're painting along, and then just start again. All right, so enjoy the process, and I'll tune in again when I think you need to know some more information. So that's our first layer. Now I want you to dry between layers. All right. So now we want to add some smaller areas. So I'm going to use a smaller brush here. So this is a 0. No, actually I'm going to use a little bigger. This is a number 2. So I want to add some darker areas. So I'm going to use this shading flesh color. And we're going to mix between the two, the light color we just put on and this shading color. Right now I want to just put some really dark areas. So along the top of his hairline here, and on this side of his face is very dark around his eye and in here, and his lip. So I'm just gonna use my smaller brush, and it'll be kind of scruffy at the top because his hair's there and the hat and that type of thing. Now it's going to get even darker in this area, but I just want this initial color in. It's very dark in here, and we'll have to put more darker shades in there, but let's start off with this and we can work our way out. So it's quite, we have his eyebrow here, so at the top of his eyebrow it's a little bit lighter, so don't put it too close to that eyebrow. We want a little bit, but not much. Then I'm going to mix, I didn't clean my brush, and I'm going to mix a little bit of that lighter shade, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it into that color, so it's not so harsh looking. And as you go out, you just add more of your lighter color. And it's a back and forth way of painting when you're doing portraits. And I'm not cleaning my brush, and I'm not drying now. I want to mix it on the paper, and I'm just dabbing. Just to keep looking at your reference too. You will see the how the different changes of color. His cheek is really dark, and around his nose, so I can, and his eye, so his nose comes down like this, around his nostril. It's quite dark. And then around his eyebrow and his eye. It's really dark in here. Goes down a little bit more, I think. And I'm going to keep mixing back and forth from the light to the dark without putting any kind of water on my brush. Right in here by the side of his eye is quite dark. His cheeks, you'll see that. A little more in here by the corner of his eye. Dark. A little bit more and bring it out. We can always add light or darks on top of this too. So if you're having a problem with it, dry it and then look at your reference and see where you need to change things. It's easy enough to change it. A little bit lighter right there where his eye and his brow is. Right in here, a little bit lighter. It's quite dark though on this side of his face, so just keep smoothing it as you go. I'm gonna mix a little bit of this black plum. It's very, very, very dark on one side of his face. I'll show you in a minute. It's right in here, right there. See how dark that is? And along that one a little bit there, under his nose a little bit, and his clothes have that color in it. So if you have a really dark plum shade. So I'm going to just add a little bit to my brush. Just go into the tops. Right in here is very dark. And along his eye. And I'm just slightly putting just the smallest amount on my brush. And I'm looking at my reference. Blending in some of that with the lighter color. So you don't want a really hard line. Right in here by his nostrils, really, really dark. Just a small amount though. You don't need a lot, just a small amount. And I'm going to add a little bit of this red into his cheeks here. Goes up into his eye a little bit. It's fairly dark in there. Mix a little bit of that lighter flesh color with a little bit of red. And then I'm going to put a little bit of that, just the flesh color, the light flesh color. And right along the eye here is lighter. I'll put a little bit there and right at the top of his eye also. And we have a little mark right here that we can blend in. I'm going to put a little bit of that red on my brush. Blend that in a little bit around it. Leave a little bit of a highlight on the skin. And I want to do the same thing for in here. So a little bit of the flesh color and a little bit of this red. Just along the top here. And then the flesh on its own. I didn't clean my brush, though. I'm just using my paper towel to wipe some of the paint off. Just back and forth, back and forth. A bit of that plum shade again in there. A little bit under his eye. Okay, I'm going to take some of this mid-tone, just where the shading area is there. Needs to be a little bit darker. Just have to play with it till you get it the color you want. Back and forth. He does have wrinkles, but I'll put those in later on his forehead. All right. And a little bit on the top part of his eye here. Alright, so now I'm going to be doing a speed up version. You basically know and understand what I'm doing with the paint here. So it's a back and forth process of those 3-4 colors, and you just have to mix them. Just pay attention to your reference photo and build the layers and add your darks, your lights, your midtones. So you can watch this sped up, or you can lower the speed if you want. If you want to see it on normal, just decrease it 4 times. And I can't really explain any more than that, what I've shown you. You just have to play with the colors until you feel it's the right shade for you. You just have to remember that this is a face. There's curved areas, there's shaded areas. So when you're painting, remember the highest areas are going to be the lightest, will have highlights. The the brightest highlights will be put on last though, but just keep in mind that the shapes of the face, and pay attention to your reference photo. You may have to do this a few times, but keep trying, and remember there are ugly stages in this, and you may think that it's too red. I know he looks pretty red looking, but each layer it gets better. So I'll let you watch the rest of this, and if I have anything else to tell you, I will chime in. Okay, so when I'm doing the hands here, it's basically the same applies. It's a back and forth. Pay attention to your reference photo, look at all your shaded areas, and keep the same colors that you used in the face as in the hands. And um, if you're really having a difficult time with this, you can use your hands as mitts or gloves instead, which are much easier. Um, I know a lot of people have done that instead of trying to master the shading tones of a hand. Um, a lot of people are very, they don't like hands or feet. But if you get a chance, I would strongly suggest trying it at least, even if you just do it on a separate piece of paper. Because as soon as you can wrap your mind around the shapes of the fingers and the hands and how they're placed, it will be much easier. But you have to try. But for now, if you're just a beginner and you really are having a problem with this, just make this into a mitt, and that will look just as good as if the hands were there. So I just thought I would point that out for you because I can hear you guys in my mind right now. Oh no. Yeah, because I was there and I understand completely. So just make them into mitts if you don't want to try the fingers.
done is taken some black, a little bit of white, and made a couple colors of gray. So you want a darker and kind of a mid-tone and a light gray. And you want to keep the darker grays on the right side of his face. So wherever the darkest side of the faces is where you want the darker grays. Also, the tree is giving it a little bit of shadow, and you want to add gray on the outer edge of where the tree is also. So just put that in, and then take your, I believe it was, what kind of red was that? Whatever the red was that you have out, you want to add just a touch of black to it to make it darker, because you want it almost on the burgundy side. So we're going to put down the darkest, well, not really the darkest, but a dark color of red, and then we'll brighten it wherever the raised parts of the folds are in his hat and coat. And it's just a base coat, so put a base coat on. And pay attention to your reference photo. And as soon as I'm done that, I will chime back in. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking that bright red that we have, and I want the pure red, so I don't want it shaded down with the black. And we're going to look at all the raised areas on his hat and his jacket and put that bright red on those highlighted areas. So look at your reference and you can put those in. And now we're going to be putting in his beard and cuffs and his hat, and we're going to add some highlight areas now. So you want to use your white with just a touch of black in it. You want it very lightly grayed down, a little bit lighter than what is already on there. So pay attention to your reference photo. Look at the lighter areas where they are. The one right side is a little bit more gray looking, so take a look at that. Use the correct brush that you want to use. If you're using a round brush, maybe you want to go in with a little bit of a stiffer brush so that you get kind of a I don't know what you call it, scratchy look, I guess. So see you can see the brush marks with a stiffer brush, and that's what you want to give that look of fur or hair, that type of thing. So find a brush that's fairly stiff. Usually an old brush works really great because it's splayed apart, so the individual hairs aren't together anymore, and that makes great brushes for hair and fur. So don't throw them out. So we just keep on putting in those areas, and you can see that it's very rough looking, and I'm not covering all of that initial gray area that we put in the beginning. You want some of that to show. I'm concentrating now on more of the lighter areas. So look at your reference photo. You'll see where There's a more white than gray, so just pay attention to that reference photo. That's pretty well all I can say. And the direction of the fur, which way is it going, and the hair. So look at that. If you mess up and put too much white in, you can always go back to the darker grays and put that back in again. It's a back and forth. Okay, so since the highlight areas have dried, they need a little bit of boosting, so I've just added a little bit more of the same color over top, and that'll brighten it up again. If you find yours isn't bright enough, just add a little bit of a yellow to it, and that should brighten it up a little bit. You don't want to add white because it will make your red go pink, and you don't want a pink. All right, and then to darken those really dark areas, I've added a little bit of black to that red mix again. So made it a little bit darker because you want a really dark in there. So decide what how dark yours needs to be, or how light your jacket highlights need to be, and adjust to what colors you're using. Now I'm going to start doing the tree that he's holding. So we want to start off with the darkest colors, and that's if you look at the reference photo, you'll see a really dark green back there. So you can use plantation green, hooker's green with a little bit of umber in it. Will give it a fairly dark color. And just paint in the areas of where that tree is. Don't go all the way to the edge of the page though, because we want to put some individual branches of the pine in there. So kind of make it look a little bit uneven. So it kind of looks like fur, I guess you could say. So you can put that in, and then we'll add layers on top of this, so get more detailed, that type of thing. So you want to get a goldenrod or an ochre color if you are using the artist grade, and just make sure that you have a fairly dark base coat to start with. Okay, so now I have the ochre color, and I'm just putting in some branches. And as you can see, I'm kind of skipping around, so it's not a one continuous branch, because there's overlaps of the needles. So you're not going to see the full branch, but you are viewing this tree from underneath. So you will see a little more than you would typically if you were staring at it, say if it was in an upright position. So if you have a fan brush, a bristle fan brush is preferred. You want something that's very stiff, and a fan brush that is kind of not too long, not too big a fan brush, and you want it bristle. That's all I can say is bristle fan brush. So try and find one, or if you don't have a fan brush, then use a flat bristle brush of some sort. You want probably a 1/2 inch, and don't wet it. Make sure that you have just a minimal amount of paint on it, because if you put too much paint on, it's going to end up with a big blob. You're not going to see the brush stroke that the fan brush will give you. And this is going to allow me to give the impression of needles instead of painting every single one. So I'm just using a lighter color of green, and this one's light avocado, but if you have a hooker's green, and you can mix a little bit of red with that, just a smidge, and that'll gray it down, and then just a bit of either white, or if you have a cream color, just to lighten it slightly, because you don't want it the same color as your background. And then you can add a little bit more highlights to your branches here and there. Don't do all of them, just a few. Ones that would be more prevalent towards you would be a little bit lighter. And as you see, I did put some branches on top of Santa, so that will give it more dimension. So again, look at your reference photo. It'll help you. And you can also go back over top of all these little needles and lighten your color again, or add a little bit of ochre to it, because sometimes your needles are dying off, especially inside the tree. So you can put a little bit of a lighter shade and just put them here and there, not all over the whole thing, and that'll give you a little bit more detail. And now I'm going to be finishing up by putting just a little bit of bright whites on the beard and the cuffs and the hat, just to overlap some of that green that I put in. And that's pretty well it, other than a bit of snow. You don't have to put snow on if you don't want to. I've just used a bristle brush and a lot of water and just flicked it. Now you can just have the fine snow like this, or what I've done is I've just dotted a few larger flakes and then taken another brush and just kind of smudge them in so it looks like they're more in front of you. So you do whatever you want. Leave it as is or put the snow in. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you'll give this a try, because I want to do some more portraits, but you have to try them in order to do them, right? So practice makes perfect, and I hope you have a fantastic creative holiday, and we'll see you in the new year. Have a good one, everyone. Bye for now.